taxes, I'm going to step out and I'm going to increase the services in the community. And I'm going to get all this done by just raising taxes on that guy. That I'm going to do everything with this government that you could have ever dreamed of. And guess what? All we have to do is tax that guy. I understand the logic. I understand the political appeal. I really do. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous. I've already talked about no nation in history ever surviving when, for an extended period of time, taking in more than 30% of the money in the economy per year. Our government's been doing that for years. For years, we've been taxing higher and higher and higher. We've been faced with, unfortunately, complacency on the part of the American people, a complacency in terms of the taxes that we place on the rich, but also a lack of understanding. I'm just not sure that people understand fully the danger of higher taxes on the rich, though it makes for a good campaign slogan. I'd like to talk for just a moment, continuing in taxes on capital gains and on the wealthy and on corporations in this country, expanding out from small business, on exactly how damaging it can be to the economy. It can be to the economy. Ronald Reagan used to say, and we'll get to Reaganomics in a second, so I don't want anyone to roll their eyes when I bring up Ronald Reagan and tax policy. But Ronald Reagan used to say very clearly that a rising tide lifts all boats. A rising tide lifts all boats. If you take the average Joe Schmo, and you say, what's going to help Joe Schmo more? Cutting the taxes on those making over $200,000 a year by a couple $100. Or you can go out and you can cut the capital gains tax. You can go out and you can cut taxes for the rich. And let's just say it like that. Cut taxes for the rich and watch the economy grow. Well, guess how much more money Joe Schmo is making once he gets a better, higher paying job? Guess how much money Joe Schmo is keeping in his pocket when consumer prices drop because of increased money in the economy and because of increased consumer competition. Guess how much more money Joe Schmo is keeping. That $300 doesn't sound quite as appealing anymore. Because with lower taxes, we've grown the economy. And with a growing economy, we're putting more money back in the private owner's hands. With growing the economy, we can do much, much more for each individual citizen than a government could ever do for its people. Are we still going good on feed?
We're good? We're good.
Right. I didn't crack the lens yet, have I?
No, we're
okay.
good. Still go.
Still working. Okay. Ronald Reagan used to say, and Ronald Reagan's kind of my hero in regards to contemporary tax policy. But Ronald Reagan used to say that I don't want to, as president, create prosperity, because we all know, and you'll like this, Free, so Free, listen to this part, because you'll like this. Okay. Ronald Reagan used to say, as president, my goal is not going to be to create prosperity. I'm going to stand here today and tell you I will not create prosperity for you. Sure, I'm going to ask you, are you better now than you were 4 years ago? But I'm not going to create prosperity for you. I'm going to get out of the way for those who can create prosperity. I'm going to move this government out of the way. Remove the red tape from those people who can create prosperity. Because it's the private entrepreneurs of the system, it's the private business owners who can create prosperity in this country much more so than a government ever could. Or ever will. And when you cut taxes, here it comes. Here comes the big statement. I hope everyone holds their breath, because I know that I'll probably be raised after I say it. Here comes the huge statement. When you cut taxes, you increase revenue. Thank you. I'm glad that got applause. I'm glad that got applause. Because when you cut taxes in this country, when you cut taxes, the government brings in more money. Oh, well, how can that be? I mean, you're never going to get it across in the Democratic convention when it looks like they're probably going to soon be burning an effigy anyone who cares to take But you can cut taxes and increase revenue. It seems counter to common sense that when you cut taxes, you bring in more money because less taxing should mean less money. But think about it for just a second. If you are taxing a small business at 10%, if you're taxing a small business at 10%, God willing, give us a 10% rate on a small business someday, and I'll be happy. I'll shut up for good, and no more 25-hour speeches will be necessary. But if you put a 10% tax on small businesses, and then you cut that 10% tax to a 5% tax on small businesses, I can guarantee you that you will see increased productivity by that small business. I can guarantee you that you will see an expansion in that small business. And guess what happens when you expand that small business? Well, then 5% of $1 million a year in profits is a hell of a lot more money than 10% of $200,000 a year in profits. And the same goes for workers. If we cut taxes so that the economy grows, so that jobs pay higher, so that corporations expand, so that we bring our industry back to the United States, which I'll get to in just a little bit. If we go ahead and we do that, then taking 17% of Joe Schmo's paycheck will be a lot more advantageous during a booming economy than taking 50% of Joe Schmo's paycheck during a waning economy. And it's important to remember that when you cut taxes, you can increase revenue. It's called the Barbell curve, and it's important. Yes?
We have a quick question. It's about 1 hour into your speech. Everyone's kind of wondering how you're feeling right now.
1 hour? Wow, 1 hour. Can you believe that I've already been going for 1 hour? I've only covered 2
Alright.
Well, I'm feeling good. I guess that makes us 4% of the way done, doesn't it?
It does.
I feel phenomenal. I really do. I feel great.
Alright, let's keep going.
Well, let me, before I jump back into this and forget that anyone's here, but me and my vision of Ronald Reagan and an IRS collector's agent. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming and watching for a few minutes. If you don't know what's going on, I'm delivering a 25-hour speech. I started at 9:15, so you're here for the 1 hour mark, which is, I hope, going to be a landmark. I don't feel my legs buckling yet. I'm feeling pretty strong. The casein, I think, has been good for me. You know, I might have to lose the jacket in a little bit, but all that, you know, those are all moot points. The important thing here is that when you cut taxes, you increase revenue. You cut taxes, you're going to increase revenue. And make no mistake about it, Reaganomics works. Supply side economics works. We were told for 50 years that your economy was not going to thrive unless your government put money into it. We need our government to create jobs. We need our government to give people welfare. We need our government to help consumers pay for their groceries. Or there's no way we're going to thrive. That is hogwash. Decorum would prohibit me listing a more appropriate term for Keynesian economics. But it is absolute hogwash to suggest that we need our government to create our prosperity. I would challenge anyone to look Jordan Freed in the eye and say, guess what? You can't do it. You need the government. Look Steve Jobs in the eye, or Wozniak, or whatever his partner's name is. Back in the day, look Carnegie in the eye and say, hey, guess what? You can't do it. We can do it better than you can. I don't think so. Because in this country, prosperity is created by the entrepreneur. Prosperity is created by the individual with industry. And by employing supply-side economics, you seize that American ingenuity, you seize that American ambition, which is so unique to our people, but so special. So special. If you cut taxes, you put more money into the economy. When you put more money into the economy grows. When the economy grows, it's a rising tide and it lifts all boats. When that rising tide lifts all boats, people are paying more taxes. There you go. There you go, tax and spend liberals, right? You got your money. You can go fund your turtle research out in Hawaii. You know, you can go fund your special orphanages or whatever, even though private industry can do it a lot better than you can. Go spend your money. That's great. But let our economy grow first. Let our tax base expand, because that's exactly what's going to happen when we start cutting taxes. I can't say it again, and I can't say it enough. I really can't say it enough. Now, Reagan's problem, the problem in the 80s was not with revenue. Because when we cut taxes, it happened. We had a stock market boom. It happened. We cut taxes and revenues increased. We cut taxes and the economy boomed. We cut taxes and unemployment dropped. It all happened. But we were in the midst of the Cold War. We were near the end of it, but no one could have foreseen it, and Reagan needed to spend money on defense. No one can take responsibility, no one should have to take responsibility for Reagan spending money on defense like he did other than Ronald Reagan. And it's a shame that it was necessary that we spent so much money on our national defense, or else it would have been proven to everyone. It would have been proven to everyone. Right then and there, right there in the 1984 quarter returns, when the revenue was actually on the increase, on the up, that cutting taxes increases revenue, that cutting taxes and supply economics and supply-side economics works. Supply-side economics works. It works. And Reagan was not to be vindicated until George Bush in 2001. Ironic that such a non-Reagan conservative, such a big government conservative like George Bush, someone who has really disappointed a lot of small government conservatives like myself, that he would vindicate, and I mean vindicate, with a capital V, that he would vindicate Reaganomics, that he would vindicate lower taxes, because George Bush cut taxes in 2001. He had inherited a recession, George Bush had. He had inherited the recession from the Clinton years. Clinton saw an unbelievable boost in the economy, based again, ironically enough, on private entrepreneurs on the internet. And that dot-com bubble had exploded. We'll get to that later. But there was a recession. Not Bill Clinton's fault in particular, I don't believe. Not George Bush's fault in particular, I don't believe. But there was a recession. That just happens in the market economy. That recession, on a dime turnaround. The consumers dug their heels in, began to push back. The entrepreneurs said, hey, we can come out of this. And guess what did it? Bush's tax cuts of 2001. He cut taxes. The recession stopped on a dime. We started growing. We had terrible deficits, but our revenue was growing. We cut taxes, our revenue was growing. The war in Iraq came. Should have seen an increase in the deficit. But for some reason, our deficit has been shrinking. Our revenue has been increasing for years now. How in the world would a deficit shrink at a time of war when we had an out-of-control Congress, an out-of-control federal bureaucracy, and military spending, which is higher as a per capita rate than almost any time in the past? How in the world would we have a decreasing deficit? It's because we have lower taxes. I feel like I'm the only one in the room when we're talking about this with my fine-hearted liberal friends who has any sense of common of logic to him. You cut taxes, you increase revenue. Then you can go spend your money, but you grow the economy too. George Bush set a goal in his 2005 State of the Union. He set a goal. He was going to cut the deficit in half in 10 years. The deficit was cut in half in 2. The deficit got cut in half in 2 years. And it was all because of the tax cuts. Tax cuts, tax cuts, tax cuts. I'll finish this portion just by saying you wouldn't think you'd have to make the case again and again and again, but you do. And it's that important to this country that we continue to make that case.
So, maybe this is a question.
Of course.
We were wondering, in terms of supply side and Keynesian, is it Keynesian or Keynesian, and why?
I say Keynesian, some people say Keynesian. Let me tell you what it is. Most definitely not from Keynesian. I have a teacher who was supposed to be teaching us in economics, and she was referring to it as Keynesian. Maybe I'm the only one who sees the irony in that. My economics teacher telling me that it's Keynesian. It sounds like some sort of weird nationality or something. I wouldn't know. But I want to spend just another minute because I don't think I covered quite enough in depth on the minimum wage. Because the easiest thing in the world to do for politicians is run around saying you want a higher minimum wage. I mean, the truth is almost no one in this country, well, no one who needs a stable, single source of income to support families actually making the minimum wage. I mean, that doesn't really apply to most people who have to take care of a family or even have to take care of themselves on their own. It doesn't really even apply. So everyone, it sounds great. Oh yeah, the minimum wage. Why not? How could it hurt? Well, let me be the first to say that while I have more compassion than anyone for the lower classes, that only means I want to do things that actually make a difference. And the minimum wage doesn't. Because when you cut the minimum wage, you're saving a buck for teenagers, most of whom are the ones who make the minimum wage rate in most states. You're saving money for people who work part-time, who are not the sole income earner in the family. You're not really helping anyone substantively at all. And I know it feels good to say we're going to raise the minimum wage. We're going to raise the minimum wage. We're going to make sure that businesses pay people a fair wage. Well, that's all well and good, and it is. And it's noble in intention, but let's also make sure that we're doing things that actually help the average worker in the United States. Because the average worker, thank God, God bless our entrepreneurs, God bless our market capitalist system, it is the minimum wage, which applies only to a smaller amount of people than we should even really be concerned with helping right now. We need to cut taxes. And by cutting taxes, we're going to help more people than the minimum wage ever would. We need to help businesses expand. Getting a job is a lot better than having a few cents more on a worse job per hour. It's important that we continue to remember what will help most and what will help least. And that means not subscribing to this idea that we can just raise the minimum wage and raise taxes and the government's going to expand. We're going to beat over the head every individual entrepreneur who could have ever made a difference, who could have ever helped to expand this beautiful economy that we have, which is growing. And give in to the political pressures of the day. I have this book here, which I might get to in a little bit. I'll certainly get to the introduction. Profiles in Courage by John Kennedy. What you see in the Senate, what you see in the House of Representatives, and I don't care if it's a Republican House or a Democratic House, I don't care if it's a Republican Senate or a Democratic Senate. What you see are profiles in cowardice. Not courage. Profiles in cowardice. We need politicians who will stand up to things like the minimum wage hikes, the tax hikes, and say, this is wrong. And I know you can't stick it on the back of a bumper sticker. And I know that you can't get on TV and pander with it. But it's the right thing to do. And ultimately, it's going to make the most difference. We need those politicians back in the United States. And I'll get to political courage in a few minutes, but nowhere is there more of a showing of profiles of cowardice. Profiles in cowardice than with tax policy and minimum wage. we need to make sure that we rely on the market. The market. When has the market done us wrong? There are big glitches. There's going to be a glitch when I talk for 25 hours. I might trip, I might fall, I might slip up, my voice might crack. But I'm going to keep going strong, and that's like the market economy. When has the market economy done us wrong? Someone raise their hand. Has the market economy done us wrong? It hasn't. Oh yeah, some will point to the Depression and say, oh, well, there's an example of where the market economy did us wrong. No, that's hogwash. That's more some of that hogwash. Because what did us wrong there was a Federal Reserve which didn't know how to control the money supply. The market economy in this country has never done us wrong. Never. Am I talking too loud?
No, I'm not trying to talk.
Okay. The market economy will distribute money where it's due. And it's natural. It's natural in a capitalist society that some will make more money than others. And let us not fear that. Let us not fear when one person makes more than another. Let us not fear classes. And certainly, let us fear. Make sure we do fear class warfare, which will erode our society. And which will hold us back. Which will hold us back. You know, like people told me this was going to be hard. I'm having fun. When's the hard part start? It's coming, right? Well, I want to make sure for our guests here, and for the news, and for you guys that I jump around. And I want to make sure that I cover all different kinds of things, because there will be plenty to talk about to myself for my own personal enjoyment throughout the night. I have a few sections here. I see there's a section here that was passing through on history, on all different kinds of stuff, but I thought maybe for a second I'd jump back to another story from my life, seeing as that was kind of a crowd favorite. Kind of a crowd favorite with my friends over here. I was thinking about how to talk about the justice system. And God knows there's so much to cover in the justice system, both in theory, in principle, and in specific policy, resource allocation, topics like that. And then I thought back, what really, what has really clarified the significance of the justice system in your mind? What has really made clear to you that the justice system is one of the most sacred things we have in this country, and that a lot of our rights, which are protected under the justice system, both as if we were ever unfortunate enough to be accused of a crime, or if we were to be victims of a crime, thank you, if we were to be victims of a crime, how important it is that those liberties are protected. Well, I'm going to tell a story about when I was in 9th grade. And Mike was there, so he'll smirk while I tell this. And about when I was spraying. We were taking biology class, me and Mike. And let me back up a second. There's this kid named Anthony Simpkin. I mean, a kid named, your name is Anthony Simpkin, there's going to be suspicion to begin with, right? And Anthony Simpkin, he did this weird scat. He called it a scat. I'm not going to, for purposes of not embarrassing myself here, certainly not with meeting. I'm not going to try to do an impression of this scat. I'm going to tell you, it was a weird demonic sounding rant of noise and beats. And I don't want to get into it. It's not important. Well, it is important, but not the specifics of the sound. Well, he did this scat every day and always got in trouble for it, blah, blah, blah. Everyone thought it was funny. Yeah, it was funny. It was funny to listen to it. And there's a real troublemaker. I think people tend to throw that term around too loosely, troublemaker. I mean, Karan Sharma, this kid's a troublemaker, right? I mean, you talk about someone who's really gonna kick up some dust in a class. I mean, this kid knows how to take a teacher off, right? This kid knows how to start a fight. This is what a troublemaker is. I mean, in the mold of my man Tom Sawyer here, this kid knew how to make trouble, and I think I must have just been an easy Thank you. I think I must have just been an easy target for him. Because we were taking a test one day, and I was minding my own business. I sat in the back of the room near a TV on a stand, kind of like this stand over here in the corner. It was on wheels, on a stand. And thank you for coming out.
Good luck. Let us know how it goes.
Absolutely, we'll do. We're going to be going until 10:15 tomorrow if you'd like to go to the conclusion. Thank you for coming. You know, it was a TV on wheels like this, and we're just taking this test. And absolutely out of nowhere, and Mike can attest this scat. It's a silent room, and you just hear it. And it's not Cynthia, because he's there with his head down laughing. But you hear it, this scat going on, and it's loud, it's deafening. You hear this however you do it. It was loud. Everyone's looking around there. Now, what the hell is that? You know, what is this? What is this scat here? And no one figured out. But I say, wow, you know, I think I know the source of it. So I kind of, you know, very cautiously wandered to the back of the room near where I'm sitting, because I'm the closest one. And there's a tape player. And this thing is loud as can be. I turn it down a little bit, but you can still hear the scat. And my teacher's furious. There's fire in her eyes. She is just angry. She's yelling. And I pull this thing out and I go, this is it. This is the thing playing the scat. And I go, oh my God. It has my name on it. But my name was written on this tape player that was playing these loud, demonic tunes. And my teacher, in her fit of rage, assumed, and I'm not even going to blame her for this, she assumed it must have been me. It must have been me. So I have to deal with the fact that I've been accused of planting this in the middle of a biology test, of all places, and getting this lousy plant. It's clearly not my tape player. I have no reason to put scats on in the middle of class. Now, I know instantly who does have a reason to do it. That lovable but havoc-raising Karan Sharma. So I take this tape player, and my teacher tells me, you know, you have detention. That's it. Hands down, you have detention. And I'm flipping out. What do you mean I have detention? Why would I have detention? I didn't do anything wrong. I've been framed. I was framed, right? Like she hasn't heard that one before. But she hasn't heard that one. I'm framed. I didn't do anything wrong. She goes, no, you have detention. But this scat player, it's right here, it's right by your seat. It has your name on it, for Christ's sake. Right? It has your name on it, it's been playing loud, you totally disturbed my class, you disrespected me, you've shown a reckless disregard for the rest of the students in the classroom who are trying their best, who probably worked hard on this test. You have detention. You know what? I'm so angry and dishing out this sentence that I'm going to make it 3. You have 3 detentions. And meanwhile, while I rather enjoy detentions, because I think you see the diversity of personality in the detention room that you'll never find among goody-goodies in an AP biology classroom. But I wanted to plead my case, and after convincing her, she let me. And I guess right there, she could have just said, no, I'm just going to give you detention, and I wouldn't really have had any recourse, any course of action by which I could have altered the sentence she'd given me, but she gave me a chance to argue. So I said, you know, I have an idea of who I think this might be. And I noticed on the tape player that my name was on it, but it was handwritten. I said, this is most certainly not my handwriting. If this was my handwriting, as some people probably know, you wouldn't even be able to read the name on it. So I said, you know, let me take a look at those cards you filled out at the beginning of the school year about your personal information. And I was looking through it, and lo and behold, there's Karan Sharma's card. And right there on Karan Sharma's card is some handwriting which is identical to that of the tape player. I mean, the kid's stupid enough, he could have even typed out my name and taken it on there or something. But I was able to show her this, and I talked with her for a little while, and I was able to prove that it wasn't me who did it. I was able to prove it wasn't me who did it. What an opportunity when you're framed and seemingly all the evidence points against you, that you get a chance to tell your teacher, or convince your teacher, through undeniable evidence, that you had done something wrong. And is that not illustrative of the most important part of our justice system? that you're innocent until proven guilty. And people say that, and this is a theme I know I keep getting back to. People say that all too often, innocent until proven guilty. Innocent until proven guilty, it becomes a cliche. It starts to lose its meaning. But how important it is in this country that you can't be convicted of a crime unless there's damning evidence against you, unless there's convincing proof that you have done something wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong, and I was able to surmise the proof to show that. And it's important when we go through an experience like that we remember how special it is that we were given that opportunity. I know I don't want to sound too over sentimental this early in the speech, but while I was absolutely sick to my stomach over the $17 that the federal government had robbed from me, I couldn't help but thinking how lucky I am that it's only $17, how lucky I am that I get to work for a profit. It is not a foregone conclusion when born onto this earth today, and certainly not, even worse, born onto this earth in the past, that when you wake up in the morning, you can say, I'm going to go out and work. And for my hard work, I'm going to be repaid. That's not a foregone conclusion. That's something special that we have, especially in this country. How about the fact that if you don't, thank you guys so much for coming. Oh, okay. That in this country, Jordan Freed can wake up in the morning and say, I want to start a business.
Yeah.
And guess what? Government can't tell me that.
No, they can't.
Government can't tell me how much money I'm going to make. Government can't tell me how much I'm going to expand. Government can't tell me where I'm going to go with it. How special. I know it probably sounds crazy. And again, I'm not trying to sound too overly sentimental. One day when we grow up, we can have children. We can have as many children as we want.
Oh, yeah.
Let's keep the chauvinist pigs at bay over here, okay? With me. If we lived in China right now, if we lived in China right now, we could only have one child. You couldn't give your child another sister. You couldn't bring another life into this world. And not because of anything other than the government telling you that you can. And how scary that is. We've grown too comfortable in this country with the government that expands. We've forgotten. We had forgotten where our ancestors came from. We have forgotten the liberties that we had are always just on the edge. We have forgotten, in a world where we're isolated within the peace and prosperity of the United States, that America is the world's last best hope. That if we can't keep those liberties here, if we can't keep that uninhibited, unfettered capitalism here, then it's gone forever. That is an enormous obligation to ourselves, but to others as well. Because if the United States will not stand up for market capitalism, if the United States will not stand up for human freedom, if the United States will not stand up for personal liberty, then no one else will. And it will crumble slowly around us. And I know it's impossible to fathom. I know it's impossible to grasp this because we're so comfortable with where we are. There was a conservative commentator I was listening to once in Washington. He told a great example. And I think that this is a perfect example of what we need to do in this country, what we need to remember in this country. He said, take a frog, put on a pot of water, and boil it. Boil a giant pot of water. Take that frog, throw it in. The second that frog hits that scalding bubbling water, boiling at the highest of temperatures, that frog is going to jump out immediately. It's going to jump right out. Frog won't be touched. It won't be hurt. Try to throw on us that we can no longer go out and make a profit past a certain cap. We'll fight that. It'll be gone. It won't happen. Try to tell us we no longer have the freedom of speech. It'll be gone. We'll fight it off. It'll be over. But then consider another way of killing that frog. Consider if you place the frog in the water when it's lukewarm. The frog kind of enjoys the water. It feels comfortable. It feels safe in that lukewarm water. And then slowly start to turn up the temperature. Slowly. It'll get hotter and hotter and hotter, and then it'll start boiling, and it will be too late for that frog to make its way out. It will be too late, and the frog will die. So true is that story, and such a correlation lies there to our rights. You can't throw on an American citizen restrictions on any of his rights, but I can promise you, because American citizens are not devoid of those basic tendencies of all humans. Put them in a comfortable position and slowly strip away their rights. And they'll come more easily than you could expect. And we can't forget that. Because we can't let it happen. And remember that slow degradation of rights. Remember that slow shredding of the Constitution will not happen by a malicious tyrant. Not in the United States it won't. It won't happen as a result of the actions of dictators. We will slowly start to lose our rights. We will slowly start to be inhibited. We will slowly start to be restrained by people with the best of intentions. It is not the evil constitutional scholar who decides that certain parts of that Constitution no longer apply. It is the one with the best of intentions. It's not the evil cop that breaks into your house without a warrant, starts to degrade that right of not being searched without a warrant, who starts to ruin our Fourth Amendment rights, for example. It's the cop with the best of intentions, the cop who wants to look out for the victim. It is not evil people that will do this, it's people with the best of intentions, but however noble the intentions, it's no excuse. We need to protect vigilantly our rights in this country, and remember that they are not just given. I happen to believe that rights in this country are inspired probably by God himself. There is a God. But they're not just given. We don't just have them. There was a time when we had to fight for them. There was a time later when we had to fight to protect them. At times fight each other to protect them. Fight abroad to protect them. And we must fight still to protect them. But that fight for our rights, is a fight waged with much more than just guns. A fight waged with much more than just bullets. And it's not always a fight where we're punching at someone we can see. It's a fight of ideas. It's a struggle of words and sentiments and values. In that fight, we need to protect our freedom just as surely as we'll send our young men and women overseas to protect a right. Just as surely as we'll employ our law enforcement officers in only a structure that is restrained by the Constitution. Well, I didn't mean to slow down the pace or anything, but just kind of had to get that off my chest. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Where are you guys from?
City Honors.
City Honors?
Yeah.
What grade?
Seniors.
Seniors. You know Aaron Crawford?
Yes.
I used to go to camp with her. She goes to City Honors.
And
Right?
Aaron Rubin, you know.
Is you guys here, are you all school now? Or?
We're doing internships for the last month of school.
Really? Are you interning here?
Yeah.
And they stick you here, huh? God, I hope they don't have to. I hope they're not making you stay here too long. Beautiful facility. Really appreciate the way you guys have, the way you guys let me use this at hosting here. I'm going to try to avoid a lot of the policy discussion because I want to save that for when we get a lot more people from school to come out. I'd like to talk for a little while, if I could, about history. Appropriately enough in the Historical Society with our Historical Society interns. For what it's worth, I know intern. I've spent quite a bit of time doing it myself, and it's worth it in the long run. It will seem otherwise at times. Do you guys know where you're going to school yet?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, I'm going to Fordham.
You going to Fordham?
Yeah.
Awesome. Where are you going?
University of Pennsylvania.
Wow. Good. University of Pennsylvania, huh? I've got a couple girls in my school who will be a little bit more than spiteful if you were to tell them that. What school are you in?
College of Arts and Sciences.
College of Arts and Sciences, cool. Like to talk for a little while about several topics under the title of On the Global War on Terror, Iraq, and Allies and Enemies Abroad. It's funny because had September 11th not happened, I doubt this would even be something that would come to my mind for discussion. If we were in the 90s right now, if I decided to do this in 1996, surely before talking about the global war on terror, if such a war could even have claimed to have existed back then, I'd probably be talking more about, I don't know, healthcare, maybe even more about tax policy, if even possible, because I ranted for an hour on it. But all that changed on September the 11th. Just like everything changed when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, everything changed on September the 11th. We realized that we could no longer retreat when necessary within our borders. And we realized that our oceans would protect us. And it's a shame because for the longest time, we could fight for liberty abroad and be assured of safety at home. We really could. But what kind of assurance, what kind of natural, inherent, unfought for assurance can we have of safety when terrorists can jump on a plane and run it into a building? There is none. And just as we have a right to industry, just as we have a right to work, just as we have a right to raise a family, to express our ideas freely, our right towards all these things, which I haven't gotten to because I wouldn't want to bore people with reading through the Constitution, at least not just yet. we realized that we had another right. A right inherent in the spirit of this country, much more so than the specific governance texts. We realized that we had a right in this country which was more important than the right to walk through an airplane metal detector without being inconvenienced or not have our calls listened to by an FBI agent trying to catch a terrorist. We had a much more important right than all of that. We had the right not to live in fear. Good luck, guys. Good luck, guys. Enjoy your internship. We had, and still do have, a right to live our lives in safety. Interesting concept, because it had never really been an issue. Safety. Before the September 11th attacks. But we have a right to walk out to the grocery store and not be worried that that mysterious looking guy over there has a bomb under his jacket. We have a right to be able to send our children to school without living in fear that some sort of attack will happen there either. And that's an important right. A right just as important as the rest of them. And certainly a right that our government owes our people. And in my mind, a right that is more important if rights are to be weighed than so many others. And we must remember always that the global war on terror is a real struggle. We have an American confidence to us, which I would never sacrifice for anything. But we need to remember that it's a real enemy we struggle against. That it's a real enemy abroad. That though they don't take a more obvious form, a more combative form, like the Soviet Union might have, or like Nazi Germany might have, though they won't have tanks, though they won't have missiles or organized armies, they pose just as much of a threat. And as much as they pose a threat to our lives, they pose a threat to our way of life. Because, I'll tell you what, a terrorist does not need to take your life or your life or your life or anyone's life to really make the impact that he or she wants. Because if a terrorist can walk into a shopping mall, set off an explosion, and for the next 2 months not a single consumer wants to walk into a shopping market, well then he's done his job. If a couple of lunatics, notably evil terrorists, can fly a plane or a couple planes into huge buildings and kill a couple thousand people, but therein slow down an economy for millions, then they've done their job. And we need to remember that. And we need to make sure that we squash this cancer, like we were talking about, remember, like that professor was talking about, this cancer of terrorism now. We need to squash it now. We need to deplete it of its oxygen. We need to make it suffer and then die. And it's not a light struggle. And it's not police action. Never subscribe to the idea that the global war on terror somehow consists of law enforcement, because it's not. Law enforcement is involved, but we need to employ our army where necessary. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean invading countries. I had very strong reservations about the war in Iraq, and we'll get to that later. I understood parts of it and I had reservations about it. But to focus on the general war on terror, we need to remember that, first of all, we need a grand strategy. That punching holes through a terrorist network here and there, swatting at flies, isn't going to do the job. We need a grand strategy. A grand strategy that addresses this threat for what it really is. And then we need to take the fight to the terrorists. George Bush has made that somewhat of a campaign slogan. And I don't want to sound like that, and I don't want this to sound like an endorsement of every one of his counterterrorism policies. But we need to take the fight to the terrorists. And I hate to put it like this, but we need a tough guy in the White House. No one else is here, and it's just the camera. And I'll say it strongly to the camera. You know, we don't need the White House another pussy. We need something. There's no need for applause on that. Bring more attention to the inappropriate comment there. We need a tough guy in the White House. I don't care if you're a liberal or a conservative. I don't care if you're white or black or green or orange. I don't care if you're a pagan, a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew. I want someone in the White House who's going to stare down a terrorist and say, "You don't scare me." To tell them, I don't care about opposition at home. I'm going to get the job done. I don't care about your sensibilities. I don't care if you tell me I need to understand what you're saying before I start to quell the fighting. We need a president who's going to look in the eyes of the terrorists and say, if you kill innocent Americans, innocent men and women and children, then you're not going to be bargained with. That Osama bin Laden, I'll follow you to the gates of hell, like John McCain put it. I was for John McCain for president, but support the state. Follow him to the gates of hell.
You have a question.
Yeah.
So you don't believe that diplomacy at this point?
You know, that's a good question. And I was going to get to that in a little bit, but now's as good a time as any. Of course diplomacy works. Of course diplomacy works. Of course. But it's not all that works. And we can't forget that there are other countries which might not share the same opinion on the matter as we do. Listen, if England wants to work with us, then that's great, because they have. England, the MI6 and the police services affiliated in Great Britain were the ones who thwarted a giant plan on airline carriers to where a bunch of terrorists were going to go on board with liquid explosives, I know you remember this, and explode it. And there's an example of where hundreds of people would have died had it not been for the diplomacy of the United States. And diplomacy works in some places, but some places it doesn't. Because France doesn't want us in Iraq. And if going to Iraq was the thing we needed to do to protect ourselves, I'm not saying it is. Who the hell is France to tell us we can? And if going into Afghanistan is what needs to be done to thwart Al-Qaeda, then who the hell is Afghanistan to tell us we can? Because at times, diplomacy doesn't work. And I think there are very definite reasons why we need to continue to work with other nations, and we do. We do work with other nations. But let us not forget that that's not all there is, and that there are times when the United States' problems are the United States' problems. Remember? Because there are times when a nation's problems are a nation's problems. We were talking about this earlier. And I can tell you one thing. I'm not looking to Germany to protect me. I'm not going to leave it to the Saudis to rat out their terrorists. I'm not going to put my faith in Iran. And as long as I can't do a single one of those with certainty, with a clear moral conscience, with a fighting heart, which I know will protect the families of this country, I'm going to remember that diplomacy comes second to a little bit of badass action where the American president's going to go out and get something done. Moving along in that mold, but maybe not quite in that mold. We need to stop tying behind their backs the hands of our own intelligence services. It's almost as if, like they used to say in Elizabeth Zoolander, that stupid movie about the model, when Will Ferrell would stand up and say, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Okay? You know, watching liberals fight our own intelligence services, watching so many Democrats make such a hardened attempt to tie the backs of our own people trying to protect us, it makes me feel like you're taking crazy pills. Am I missing something here? The Patriot Act. There's nothing in the Patriot Act unconstitutional. Maybe there isn't. There were a few things that have been since corrected. But the idea that we would streamline our intelligence services so as to make them more efficient, the idea that while Bill Clinton and Janet Reno spent years trying to, what they, in their own words, build a wall between the CIA and the FBI so they can't work together, so that they don't become too powerful, because the Patriot Act starts to take down that wall stone by stone and brick by brick. That's unconstitutional? I don't think so. It doesn't pander well to the George Soros fundraisers, but it's what's necessary for this country. We need more bureaucratic cooperation. We need to make sure that we streamline our processes so that we can get a warrant on short notice. There's nothing unconstitutional. If you get a warrant, you get a warrant. Now, we want to make it quicker and it's unconstitutional? That doesn't make any sense. The Patriot Act is one of the most necessary pieces of legislation passed in this country in the past 100 years. By far. Absolutely by far. The terrorists have not disappeared after September the 11th. The terrorists have not disappeared. Yet there hasn't been another attack. I think we need to remember why that is. I'd like to touch for just a few moments on the NSA wiretapping controversy. Because I could have sworn when I was listening to the debate about this back a couple of years ago that, again, I was taking crazy notes. We had a couple of FBI agencies or affiliated agencies going out and listening in on the calls of terrorists. And thereafter, because the process of getting warrants was too slow, getting and maintaining a warrant afterwards. And without that warrant, that those phone calls would have never been used. But they went and made the phone call before they had a warrant, just because we didn't have time. If you know that there's a phone call taking place, which will provide vital information, and it's taking place in 2 hours, and you need to listen into that phone call, you're not going to be able to get a warrant in 2 hours. So what they're doing is going out, listening to the phone call, and go for a warrant afterwards. And all of a sudden, that was unconstitutional. Well, not using it in court unless being provided a warrant. I'm not quite so sure that that doesn't mean constitutional muster. But I guess in the old saying, look is, who wouldn't take those steps so necessary to protect our own country? Who would stand so adamantly against the NSA wiretapping program? I'll tell you who it is. It's only those people who don't truly understand or don't fully comprehend or appreciate the size of the threat against us. You hear a lot in regards to this war on terror and protecting our homeland about Guantanamo Bay. And I know that we got the Mitt Romney caucus over here that would praise everything he said. Let me give him a little plug. Do I look anything like Mitt Romney?
Nah.
You know, Mitt Romney had a point. He said, you hear people say, you know, abolish Guantanamo Bay, abolish Guantanamo Bay, abolish Guantanamo Bay. Don't